Chapter 29. So we have several pieces of vocab for chapter 29, and it's really all about these two first definitions. Traditionalists are people who had deep respect for long-held cultural and traditional beliefs. Now, sometimes we call them conservatives. They don't want things to change. They think that everything should sort of stay the same. Remember, we wanted that conservatism at the beginning of the 1920s. Now, they had battles with modernists. Now, modernists are people who embrace new ideas, styles, and social trends. Think about a lot of the young people in the 1920s. They want things to change. They want to move away from the farm. They want to move to the city with the bright lights and the social aspects. They want to drink gin and they want to smoke cigarettes. Now, one of the embodiment of the modernist ideal is the flapper. Now, a flapper is typically a young woman during the 1920s who broke with traditional expectations. Remember, her skirt went from her ankles all the way up past her knees. Scandalous. And she would cut her hair short so it was just right below her ears, and that's called a bob. She would wear these feather boas and she would smoke cigarettes. She would drink alcohol in public. Oh my goodness, scandalous. And of course, she knew how to dance the Charleston. And she loved to go to places like the Cotton Club. Now, the Volstead Act comes into being not in the 1920s, but technically in the teens. Before the 20s. Remember, the temperance movement worked long and hard to get alcohol to be gone because they saw that as a sign of weakness and it would break up families. That's the 18th Amendment, the prohibition or keeping away of alcohol. To combat that, because people wanted to drink alcohol, they formed speakeasies. These were the secret drinking clubs during the Prohibition era. You would often have a password. You would belong to the club, so you're not technically buying alcohol, which is where that language got really sort of dicey, is you could possess alcohol, but you couldn't sell it. That was one of the ways around, although they were often rated. Think movies. Now, finally, one of the big differences between modernism and traditionalism is the Scopes trial. They often called it the Scopes monkey trial because it looked at the two sides. The traditionalist view that creationism, that all people are created by a God and they are made in their image, and that should be taught in school. And the modernists who believe that Darwin's theory of evolution should be taught in school, that all humans evolve from the basic primates, aka the monkeys, right? John Scopes was the person who was tried and who was found guilty, and it basically banned the teaching of evolution in many states. This was a huge trial. All right. Again, traditionalist versus modernist. Those are two terms you've got to know. After the war, we talked about farmers losing their farms. Calvin Coolidge, who was the second of our Republican presidents, vetoes any bills that would help farmers. Remember, a lot of the conservative presidents, the Republican presidents, felt that the economic system would right itself. Remember, we want to have free enterprise. The government doesn't get too involved and things will work itself out. There's a divide between traditionalists and modernists, and we see this religious fundamentalism, this belief that religious texts should be taken literally, meaning if it's written down in the Bible, then it is total and complete truth. We have urban areas being the opposite of that, where there are factories, office buildings. We see that people are that people are making more and more money, the ones who are moving to the city, because the consumer price index does not raise. So the basic cost of necessities are basically staying the same, but people are actually making more and more money. So the direct result of that is we're going to move from the farm to the city. 19 million people move from the farms to the city. And that's a huge thing. Remember, this is the big break. Oops. All right. Traditionalists versus modernists. Flappers versus the old school. They want to be in a big city in bright lights. Remember, we have a definite divide between that. 18th Amendment, remember, prohibition of alcohol. I'm kind of repeating these things. If you wrote it down before, you don't have to write it down again. Yay. And then traditionalists thought that the alcohol led to the crime, violence, and the breakup of families. So that's why they thought prohibition was a good thing. Many modernists came to oppose prohibition because they saw it as a increase of crime. People were trying to sell alcohol to people because it was illegal. They thought if you make things illegal, it's going to create a whole network of criminals who are going to try and break the law to provide that product. And eventually it does, of course, get banned. Any questions? Let me know.